Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Delaware County Board of Supervisors meeting this Tuesday, March 26th. We had closed session. Is there anything to report out of closed session?
Yes. The board voted to defend Cox v. Padilla, which is listed on the agenda, with a motion by Supervisor Hemmingson and a second by Supervisor Howard and a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a moment of reflection. Great. At this time, Aaron, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there any introductions of new employees at this time? Good morning, Sheriff.
I'd like to call John Navarez up, please. We just hired John. We're excited to have him on board as a deputy. A little bit about him. He was a U.S. Forest Service firefighter from 1980 to 1985. Worked for U.S. Border Patrol from 85 to 92. CHP from 92 to 2016. Retired there. Recently did a year with Yurok Tribal Police as a warden, and we were able to swipe him and bring him over to the Delaware County Sheriff's Office. So we're very excited to have him. He brings a lot of experience and I believe the right attitude to the profession. So I would like to swear him in so everybody can be a part of that. And we'll get underway. John, raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California against
all
enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Deputy Sheriff, congratulations.
Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words?
No, ma'am. I first initially transferred to CHP in this county in 2010, and just the beauty of this county, you can't beat it, and the people of the county. And I will just do the best I can, like I did in the Highway Patrol, and serve to the best of my ability, fair and honest. Thank you.
Welcome.
Sheriff, real quick, he was while on CHP, he was a great member of the Smith River Neighborhood Watch. It would be excellent to see him back out there again if he could spare a moment of his time during those meetings.
So John has expressed an interest in working the outlying areas in Delaware County. He has a lot of experience in those areas, again with Highway Patrol. He has a desire to work our busiest time of the schedule, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday kind of mid-watch swing shift. So you're going to see him, and again, we're very excited to have him on board.
And Sheriff, just want to say it's nice to see someone of a different generation coming in as a new recruit.
Yeah, I hope to learn
gives us all senior citizens an opportunity to say well, there's some life left in us. And of course, I remember John from the CHP. You helped me get across some treacherous bridge which had no sidewalk, and I appreciate that. And it's good to see you back in action. Thank you, sir.
Don't let his young age fool you. He's very motivated. Thanks again.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to request any deletions, corrections, or additions from the board members to the agenda at this time. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Is there anything at this time, board? Okay. Then we will start with brief reports from our supervisors. Supervisor Berkowitz, I know.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My voice is a little raspy, so I'm going to make my report limited in scope today. Since our last meeting, I had several meetings with constituents about motorhomes parked illegally on public roads and streets. I had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce 4th of July Planning Committee, and also with the monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of that same chamber. Supervisor Gitlin and I had a 2x2 meeting with representatives of the Yurok tribe, where we discussed topics of mutual interest, like lack of adequate fire protection in Klamath, and along with the Klamath Dam mitigation, the Klamath Salmon Festival, and the lack of communication coverage when we have to leave Red Mountain, which will be in another year. On Friday, Supervisor Gitlin and I met with the Yurok Police Chief Greg O'Rourke, where we discussed topics surrounding cooperation with the Sheriff's Office. And yesterday, I attended a LAFCO meeting where we discussed the proposed budget, alternate public member recruitment, and the Del Norte Fire Chiefs Association emergency dispatch proposal. And Madam Chairman, that's going to be my report today.
Thank you. Supervisor Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Had a First Five Families Commissions meeting, and we discussed in great deal maybe some next steps for the Wonder Bus. Also, as you're aware, traveled with Supervisor Cowan to Los Angeles for the California Transportation Commission meeting, where the California Transportation Commission was taking up the $45 million approval for environmental work on last chance grade. As many of you seen in the paper and heard from Senator McGuire's office and all our supporters and stakeholders, the $45 million was approved for Caltrans to begin the expenditures on the environmental work. The timeline is hopefully going to be shorter than what was projected at 7 years. It was extremely controversial among many of the commissioners. There was a lot of work, pre-work that went into this meeting, and our representation there personally was not only appreciated, it was extremely important based on conversations we had not only with commissioners, but also with representatives from California Department of Transportation. Really appreciate the time and effort for folks to get down there. More importantly, Director Layton's work preparing us for that very important and critical meeting for our state highway infrastructure. Attended the Economic Summit and had the opportunity to facilitate several discussions amongst the city, the county, and the harbor, and then also introduce Adam Goldstein to the community, who's one of our newest members who settled in along Pebble Beach Drive in District 2. If you get a chance to meet him in the future, he's a great 30-something entrepreneur that has decided to make Del Norte County our home, and more importantly, bring some of his thoughts and ideas around travel and tourism with his newest business, which was Hipmunk, which he sold recently, and ideas around travel and tourism to our community. Hopefully we'll participate with the Visitors Bureau and Chamber of Commerce in the future and some of their marketing plans and ideas. Attended a Solid Waste Management Authority meeting where recycling was still top of mind, specific to the recycling of 1, 2, and number 5 plastics, which continue to be a global crisis to a certain extent. Not exactly how we're going to deal with this, and continued regulation that comes down from Cal Recycle, and then also issues around organics recycling in the state, but we continue to pay close attention to those. Attended a conference call of the California State Association of Counties Environmental and Natural Resource Committee Policy Committee. We particularly discussed areas around fire and fire prevention and resiliency, and then most importantly, the SB 45 carried by Senator Allen, which is a resiliency bond for roughly $4 billion, which would be titled Wildfire, Drought, Flood Protection Bond Act of 2020 if it passes, with a lot of discussion taking place in the state around fire and, more importantly, fire prevention, and the efforts by the governor to sink an amazing amount of money into thinning and forest clearing. We hope that the state is going to have a major impact on some of the biomass issues that we have in the forest currently and that have been a long-standing issue for the past 3+ decades. Attended a North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District meeting in Eureka, where prescribed fires were of particular hot discussion around Senate Bill 1260 and also Senate Bill 960. And in addition, had a lot of conversations with Liz Snow and staff around AB 204, which is the Community Wellness Bill, and hopefully seeing how that's moving along through the Assembly committees and eventually to the Assembly floor. We will be focusing on it when it gets over to the Senate, and hopefully helping it to be guided through the process in the Senate and hopefully to passage and signature with the governor. Attended a tri-agency meeting where we discussed some grant opportunities that were available, and then also had some constituent calls with Community Development Department around the Nautical Heights subdivision. Wanted to make mention of a resiliency meeting around tsunami preparedness at Tolowadini Nation this evening from 6 to 7, where Lori Dangler will be special guest and making presentation. Had several conversations with Stafford Lair, Director of California Fish and Wildlife, around the spring Chinook listing and on also the elk plan. As you may or may not be aware, the April meeting, which would have addressed Roosevelt elk mammal hunting regulations, has been postponed to May while they take care of some unforeseen circumstances in how they publish documents. But we do hope to address those with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the California Fish and Game Commission in May and get some resolution and movement on our Roosevelt elk issues here in Del Norte County. Had some conversations with staff around issues and concerns of the Smith River Fire Protection District and some wants that they're looking for potentially with the decommissioning of the CHP office. And then also worked with Blake Enscore on the U.S. Embassy grant that we hope to achieve in October to bring a delegation from Japan here to Del Norte County to be looking at educational pieces around disadvantaged youth, and in addition women's empowerment issues, which the U.S. Embassy has asked us to focus on. Also had a chance to speak with Star Simpson, a young entrepreneur that's developing drone technologies to deliver water to fires and avoid risk to life, limb, and property during some of these major blazes, and push a button, it goes to the fire and douses it out before it ever gets going. Wanted to make a brief mention that if you didn't hear at the Economic Summit, we did announce that we learned recently from NBC Sports that Del Norte County, Crescent City, and our story with Rikuzen Takeda Japan and Komami coming to our shore will be a feature of the 2020 Olympics. They're in Rikuzen Takeda for the next 2 weeks filming. A lot of the background and B-roll that will be taking place, and more importantly, the people of Rikuzen Takeda and many of the stories that are there. They plan on being in our community several times over the next year, so if you see them on the street, give your best Crescent City, Del Norte County warm welcome. And that's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Exciting news, exciting news. Mr. Gitlin?
Yes, thank you. I met with City Manager Weir, and he's confirmed his participation in our town hall, which will be Wednesday, April 3rd, in the Arts and Crafts Room at 5:45. The response from the Court of Appeals will be addressed with the newly adopted, hopefully newly adopted ordinances. We'll know April 1st when the city approves 3 of the 4. 1 went back for a little tweaking, and hopefully that will impact. There'll be other subjects discussed, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone at our town hall meeting a week from tomorrow. Attended the Leading Awards presentation. Sheriff Apperson, another stellar job. Naming some of the heroes who've been recognized would be a long list and take us a long time. There's a lot of great folks working in law enforcement, and I want to recognize them in this year's Leading Award, which was held at the Rancheria. Listen to an interesting webinar on the opioid crisis, which is its 1-year anniversary on the launch from President Trump's initiative to tackle this terrible crisis. We also learned that opioid deaths are killing 72,000 people a year, and that was in 2017, which surpasses traffic accidents. Some of the highlights of that webinar included the President's commitment in securing $6 billion in new funding over 2 years to fight abuse, $1.5 billion for state opioid response grants, which include California. The Department of Justice has awarded more than $400 million in support treatment, prevention, and domestic enforcement efforts. The key to the webinar was cutting off the supply, including the crackdown on illicit suppliers of the dangerous drugs like fentanyl, both in the United States and abroad. In fiscal year 2018, our southern border alone, between the ports of entry, customs, and border protection, seized enough fentanyl to kill 90 million Americans. So this is a huge problem, and the President is taking it on and hopefully working on reducing demand of this terrible problem. As Supervisor Berkowitz mentioned, we did have a 2x2 UROC meeting with Chairman James, including, but not limited to, was the fire services, and which brought some interesting conversation up from some of the folks who were in fire service down in Klamath. It seems that there's equipment problems and there's some issues that need to be dealt with locally down there, and the tribe has made a commitment to fix these things. And then, of course, the genesis of the entire conversation was how can we build up volunteer services in Klamath to serve the needs of those in need, and that will be a subject of ongoing discussion. As Supervisor Berkowitz mentioned, we also discussed Red Mountain, which there's no change on, of course, the Yurok Salmon Festival, and the dams removal and the mitigation factors involved. The tribe is not going to be part of any mitigation factor on the siltage issue, and we'll have that as one of our discussion items at our town hall. The Pelican Bay State Prison inmate fire crews participated in another freeway median cleanup. This is the third one. It's going to be done once a month. And at our CSAC Legislative Conference policy meeting, Justice and Administration, Pelican Bay State Prison will be recognized for this off-reservation effort. They also will be recognized for other areas other than on the Caltrans right-of-way, so that will be part of it. And I want to also include Sheriff Apperson's inmate program, which is getting the inmates out into the community doing these cleanups. Probation, Lonnie Raymond and his group will be doing more cleanups in an effort to make Del Norte County the most beautiful county in the state. I participated in our monthly Lions Club litter pickup. That's something that's held every 4 to 6 weeks along the perimeter of the freeway. Appeared on KFUG Sam Street's show to talk about some issues, including dam removal. As Supervisor Berkowitz mentioned, we met with Tribal Chief of Police Greg O'Rourke and Lieutenant Jacob Morrison, which is 2/3 of their department, and the chief laid out a plan to increase officers over a 5-year plan. And then also Lieutenant Morris displayed his interest in archery, which he's got quite a skill in, and we're doing outreach to Del Norte High School to see about starting an archery program, which Lieutenant Morris indicated he would be very interested in participating. At our LAFCO budget review, again, it's about $90,000 budget. Again, another great job. No meat, no fat on the bone there. Talk about the recruitment of public defender. We'll also listen to a Fire Chiefs Association emergency dispatch proposal. They wanted to come before LAFCO for the purposes of bringing up the attention of county dispatch services and how we can improve the service. So we'll be talking about that. I'm not sure what LAFCO's role is other than to make recommendations, but this comes out of the effort or quest to improve fire services in the county, and the dispatch services they feel is something that should be readdressed. We've talked about this before, and how to separate fire from other calls and have a dedicated service, and we'll be revisiting that in the coming weeks. That's my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Hemmings.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. After our last meeting, went to Sacramento to an RCRC meeting. That's a Rural Counties California meeting. A lot of discussion on forest management, or the lack of. Finally getting some headway on the biomass issue, transportation issues, which seems to be the big cost in using that biomass and turning it into something that is usable, whether that's other fuels or building materials or whatever that is. Finally making some headways. We've been working on that for a number of years. We had a guest speaker at that meeting, Ashley Bryant, who is part of Three Strands Global. They have a program called PROTECT, which is the prevention of organized to educate children on trafficking. This is all about human trafficking and how they want to put this program in schools, and they have. Del Norte County schools have not yet adopted anything but I've spoken with the superintendent of schools. He's looking at it, so we'll see where that goes. Our representative from RCRC on NACO is Kevin Can, and he's actually the chair of the WIR, the Western Interstate Region, which is the 15 western states. And they do an extremely great job of trying to promote secure rural schools, a lot of forest management stuff, things that affect the western states, rural states, and rural communities. So they're doing a great job. RCRC also has what a great staff they have on looking at legislation that's coming up. There's 72 bills that they have on their list right now. They range anywhere from in alphabetical order from cannabis to water quality. So they're all over the board with it. There's probably 8 bills that they're focusing on right now, and that could impact rural counties. So they do a lot of work on that, and they have they're just doing some great work there. So then had a conference call. I'm part of the Forest Management Task Force that the governor's put together. We had a conference call on the Regional Forest Management Task Force, where we're starting to put priority areas that are needing fuels reduction mapped out, and they're having a meeting over in or they may have had the meeting. I couldn't make it. I think it was yesterday over in Anderson. As Supervisor Howard said, the Economic Summit was on. There was a lot of neat discussions, from rebranding Del Norte County. The most interesting presentation I thought was Adam Goldstein's, how he found Del Norte County and what he's doing and what he would like to do. Very interesting presentation. So that was neat to hear. Eric Weir and Jay Serena and Charlie Helms put on a little tag team show, which was very good, as well as Senator McGuire, and it was mentioned before that we're approved another $40 million along with the $10 million that we've already gotten for the geotechnicals and the startup of the environmental. Another $40 million tacked onto that. That's $50 million now they've got for last chance grade. Matt Brady was there from the district director of District 1 from Caltrans, as well as Jamie Mattioli, who is the program manager for the last chance grade. So they spoke a little bit. It was nice to see them there. Later that day, we met Supervisor Cowan, or Chair Cowan, and I along with staff, met with Senator McGuire on the No Place Like Home Fund, looking at short-term goals, long-term goals, and kind of wanting to integrate some of that discussion at his town hall meeting on Thursday, April 18th. That'll be at Joe Hamilton, starts at 6 o'clock. Had a whale entanglement evaluation team call. I don't know if too many of you are aware, but the Center for Biological Diversity has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Fish and Wildlife for allowing the permitting of crab fishery and the whale entanglements. Kind of a long process, but they need to have, according to Center for Biological Diversity, they need to have a incidental take permit, which California does not have. They have filed an intent to file for an application, but they have to go through some hoops. Takes about 14 months to go through the hoops, then they'll file for the application, and it takes about a year to get that. But we did have a settlement hearing, or not a hearing, but a settlement conference that was pretty closed item. Not a lot of information came out of it, but that has finally been settled. Center for Biological Diversity and Fish and Wildlife, along with PCFFA, who is a coastwide fishing association, who was part of the lawsuit, came to settlement, and now the season for Dungeness crab will close on April 15th. So that's been a long drawn out process, but everybody's been pretty tight-lipped about it. As was mentioned earlier, I did attend the Leading Awards that the sheriff did a great job again putting that all together. Thank you for the invitation. We have a lot of great law enforcement people in this community. We should be supporting them. And I'd like to congratulate Bicoastal Media for their St. Jude contributions that exceeded $175,000, which was great for this community. So that's a lot of money to raise from this little community for that great organization. Had a tri-agency meeting that was discussed, so I won't go into that. Also, applications for our RAC committees will be out, so if you're interested in any of that, if you know what it is, then you might be interested. I won't go into that anymore. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So after our last meeting, as Supervisor Howard mentioned, we traveled to Los Angeles and spoke before the California Transportation Commission. And that in itself was really huge, to be able to represent this community and go before that commission, that California Commission, and tell them what last chance grade means to our community, what it means personally to us if it was to fail, and talk about all those ramifications. It was a big deal. Supervisor Hemington talked about the cost, and I want to point something out, because you see a lot of the stuff out there on social media that we've been putting money, you know, why more money, why more studies? And yes, we put, or Caltrans and the state has put $85 million between the years of 1997 and 2017 to last chance grade, to the route that is there now to keep it in place. What is new is we have never, ever, ever put any money to an alternate route until recently. So that first $5 million that came in the spring of 17 for the geotechnical studies that started last summer, and that second $5 million that came last spring, and then again the $40 million that was approved when Supervisor Howard and myself were in LA. That money is going strictly to looking at alternate routes. And yes, we live in California, and yes, we have to study. But I'd rather study it now and get that road done than be stuck in litigation for the 10 years like 199 has been. They're doing it right, and this is what it takes. But again, this money is new money going to a new route, or looking at an alternate route. And I don't want that to be confused, because people seem to get it confused. This is a big, big win for our community, and it was really You know, when we were there, the buy-in from the commission was there, you know, listening to what we had to say and being there for Caltrans. I think they really appreciated that. That doesn't happen that often. And they were really appreciative that we showed up and that we cared. And to listen to the commission say that we want to see it done quicker. You know, that's where the money's coming from. And when they sit and tell us they want to see it quicker done in 2039, that's really good news to my ears. So that was really a good trip for us. I also attended the Economic Summit. It was a full house and a big success. The branding of Del Norte County that we've been working on, the Visitors Bureau, for the past year was introduced. The new logo was introduced. If you haven't seen it, look it up, look on the website. I've got one, but you probably can't see it, it's a little small. A lot of good speakers that day. It was a long day, but a good day. It's already been kind of discussed, so I won't get into the speakers. I also, as Supervisor Hemmingson spoke of, we had a meeting with Senator McGuire while he was in town and the homeless group. Don't want to get confused, I know that Mr. Gitlin's doing a town hall next week, but the county and the city, along with Senator McGuire, are doing a town hall on April 18th, where we're going to be talking about the solutions, what we're working on for homelessness, both long-term and short-term. So I hope everybody can make that as well. Had a meeting with Gina Zatola with Wild Rivers Foundation, with Heather Snow, Tony Self, discussing short-term goals. Also had one with Hilda Contreras, again, with short-term goals to homeless that has come up, so we're working on that. We had a meeting with Housing Tools, and Supervisor Hemmingson and myself, along with staff, was there. Housing Tools is, everybody's heard us talk about the $75,000 that we got from No Place Like Home. This is the company that we have hired. We had our first meeting with them. We chose them because they've been dealing with rural communities. They're out of Sacramento, but they have an office in Chico. And they have done what we have been looking, or what we're looking at possibly doing for our No Place Like Home long-term homeless solutions. So it was a really good meeting. I'm really excited to work with them. And so we're moving forward with that. Had agenda review. Also had a juvenile justice meeting, so I'm sorry I missed the awards. I was at a meeting for juvenile justice. Went out to the high school last week and met with the Japan Club. We had a solid waste meeting, as Supervisor Howard discussed. There's a lot of things coming down the pike that California expects us to do without really giving us a way of doing it. So some work ahead of us on certain things, but I'm sure we'll get through it. And then had several different conversations with constituents, ranging anywhere from, we've got some RVs who are enjoying the Pebble Beach Drive free parking out there and have been for a few weeks. So have to deal with that, and then some noise issues and those garage bands. But other than that, track season has started, so I've attended a few track meets and continue to do so over the next couple weeks or a couple months. Thank you. So we will move on to the consent agenda. We have items 1 through 10. Items 1 through 10.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on consent agenda items only? Come on up, Jesse.
Morning, Jesse Davis.
Morning.
District 3. I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk about item number 5 and how it relates to our community of Low Divide. And so the part of Low Divide I'm talking about is District 3. It's also known as Highway 305. And the private property zone mostly falls between the 3 and 5 mile marker. So it's about where the power lines cross the road up to the last Forest Service road up there, 17 and 22, I believe. And there's about 30 residences in that stretch there, and there's probably 75 or 80 people living there. There's several working families who live there with children who commute to town regularly for work and school. It's not just a bunch of outlaws. I don't know if it ever was, but that's the perception. And I think the people who live there would like to be, you know, considered to be more included in the community. And so every summer we get 2 or 3 low-level helicopter flights. I believe those are the flights that are contracted with Brim Aviation through this DEA grant that comes annually. I understand what they're for. I think primarily it's for surveillance of public lands, although it has been used for private land surveillance too, and also for obtaining search warrants for private land. It has been used for that in the past. I think that may exceed the scope of the agreement, but I'm not really here to complain so much about that, but just to talk about how maybe there could be more involvement with our community so that we don't feel like we have to have low-level helicopter flights all the time. If it really is for surveilling public land, looking for cartel grows, there aren't any of those in this section of our neighborhood. We would know. We know what goes on there. For somebody to do a grow on public land, there'd be coming and going. There'd be noise. You can't hide that in a small community like that. So come talk to us. You know, my neighbor is building a farm stand. It's permitted, and we hope to have it be sort of a hub for community meetings. You know, hopefully people like you, the sheriff, can come and talk and just get to know the neighborhood a little more. I would like to thank and appreciate our sheriff being really approachable and easy to talk with. And so I think that's good news. And so I'd just like to see some resolution where we can avoid, you know, having these really low-level flights that they scare my children and other people's kids, and it makes it not a fun place to be. But also, you know, so that law enforcement can have their needs met at the same time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Consent agenda number 8, the general plan progress report. Within that progress report, if you look, it shows that we've made absolutely no progress on some of the resource issues. Please look that over. That's a little troublesome. So, I think with the effort to make this community more responsive to climate change, greenhouse gas issues, we should have an emphasis, a new emphasis on what we can do to install solar cells throughout this community. There's tremendous economic opportunities in other communities. I see when I did a search, there's whole shopping malls throughout this country that have, and other countries, that have placed solar cells, carport type solar cells, in vast amounts throughout their asphalt paved, heat generating surfaces. We could have, and be better prepared for the weather too, the rainy weather. So I think we should take a look at all of these resource categories that we've not made any progress on. And one thing in looking overall, with regard to water resources, I know we did a review for the Water Quality Board for groundwater and assessment. But it came to my attention after hearing about the excessive development planned in Smith River that if we're taking water off of Rowdy Creek, that's a a big problem, because our tribe is going to be maxing out that resource, and I think they have first dibs. So And, you know, Rowdy Creek is one of the most important fisheries on the Smith River. So we need to really be careful about what we do up there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the consent agenda items only? Great, I have a motion and a second. Kylie, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Supervisor Hemmingson, I believe you have a,
I do have a proclamation that was passed on the consent agenda. This is a proclamation supporting the designation of April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the Delmark County Board of Supervisors recognizes that from every moment of a child's life is an opportunity to learn, and that the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school or in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas the county acknowledges that our children are our greatest resource, and that our future will be determined by their innovative talents, ideas, and leadership, and whereas the role of our community members is to accept the responsibility of ensuring that every child experiences an environment at home, in preschool, in family child care homes, in our neighborhoods, and at school that will promote the best possible development. And whereas our community has the responsibility of offering parents the education, support, and skills needed to provide healthy, safe, and nurturing homes for their children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Delmark County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and urges the community to support the efforts of the Delmark Child Abuse Prevention Council, First 5 Delmark Child Care Council, Family Resource Center of the Redwoods, Delmark County Juvenile Court, CASA of Delmark County Health and Human Services, the Delmark County Unified School District, the City of Crescent City, licensed foster care homes, public and private agencies and programs advocating for children in Crescent City, and parents who already provide a safe, loving, and nurturing environment to their children, free of any outside intervention. Passed and adopted this 26th day of March 2019.
thank you.
Is there
Someone
somebody here?
here who'd like to? Sure. Absolutely, you can have 3 if you want them.
3? I won't take 3. I'm honored to report as I've been the local CAPC chair for the last 3 years. And I just wanted to go over a couple of highlights really quick. Last couple of years, CAPC has received an additional $8,000 through regional CAPC grants. With those funds, we've been able to triple our membership, which has been great. We have a large board, I would say roughly 20 to 30 people show up a meeting. A lot of good decisions are made there. It's open to the public if anybody's interested. We've created working committees such as the Educational Committee, Branding Committee, also established a resiliency group, provided community trainings and workshops. On April 13th, we'll be holding our annual roundtable featuring a national guest speaker who grew up in the foster care system, and also open to the public. If you're interested in any of these dates and times, we have a Facebook page, we have a website. Just check out Delmark CAPC, it'll all be there. And I'd like to invite everybody on April 1st at 5:30 at the fairgrounds parking lot. We have our annual flag raising ceremony. And I've attended several of these now. Each one of them has been memorable for different reasons, so I'd encourage you to come. Lastly, on April 6th is the annual Youth and Family Fair at the fairgrounds, so try your best to show up to that. It's really a demonstration of a lot of our local resources and a great opportunity for family interests.
Thank you.
That was way under 3 minutes, right?
That was excellent.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we are going to open it up for public comment. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you're addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to wait and to have your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Do we have any public comment at this time?
Good morning, Linda Sutter.
Good morning.
Okay, Mr. Berkowitz and Mr. Gitlin, supervisors, I'm very disappointed to hear that there was a LAFCO meeting this past week, because when I looked up on the Del Norte LAFCO site, it didn't say, it said there wasn't going to be a meeting till April. So I missed it. It's important that I attend, and this is why. The Parks and Recreation Special District and the 41st DAA continue to not only violate transparent meeting rules, but spend taxpayers measure of funds on capital projects, which was on page 3 of the October 2013, God, I can't talk, I'm sorry, meeting minutes. It was determined taxpayer funds would not be used for capital projects. Thank you. Additionally, the special district continues to misuse public funds by not requiring the 41st DAA to request money on particular uses. Let me give you an example. On today's agenda 3 and 4, the DA's office and probation office asked for a combination of, a couple $100 for plaques. Well, that's all good and well, but whenever the 41st district asks for money, let me give you an example. They'll say, oh, we need $91,400 to pay bills. And yeah, keep watching that, to pay bills. And the bottom line is well, what do you need the money for? Oh, well, I have some bills. That's what's presented to the public. And then Mr. Wakefield, the board member, says, oh, well, let's just round it off to $100,000 so you'll have some padding. That's why we have $921,920 missing from that Measure F money, according to the 2018 grand jury report. My recommendation, Mr. Berkowitz and Gitlin, is that this get disassembled, dissolved, the district get dissolved, and the county needs to take over and watch the fund money of Measure F, and then
Thank you very much for your
41st
comments,
district
Ms.
needs to make
Thank you, Ms.
requests
Sutter.
publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is David Jones. I'm the president of the Klamath Chamber of Commerce. I own several duplexes and I live in Klamath. I'm very concerned about our safety in our community. The Klamath Fire Department provides a vital service for our community. Klamath Fire has the smallest budget and the largest area of coverage of any fire department in the county. The budget shortfalls leaves our community very vulnerable and extremely challenging for our fire department to respond to fires, traffic accidents, and medical emergencies when the vehicles and apparatus are poorly maintained or missing vital equipment. We have had several situations over the past couple of years where structures have burned to the ground and have had loss of life because of the shortcomings of our fire department. We are fortunate that these fires were contained and did not get out of hand. With Crescent City Fire Department 30 minutes away providing there is no road work on Last Chance grade. All it will take is one situation to get out of control and that our fire department cannot handle. And due to the shortcomings mentioned before, we could have a large tragedy on our hands. You can see where I have a concern for this. The reason I am here today is that it has come to my attention that when the budget year ends, there are extra monies left over in other fire department budgets that are not utilized and possibly squandered. I am requesting that some of these monies be reappropriated to help with the repairs and maintenance of the equipment and apparatus for our Klamath Fire Department. I have several examples to clarify my point. All of these figures came from the 2017-2018 fiscal year budget. Fort Dick Fire, minor equipment budget, $8,000 was budgeted, $3,399 was used, with $4,600 unused. Small tools budget for Fort Dick Fire, $17,000 was allocated, $12,977 was used, with $4,600 unused. Gasky Fire, vehicle maintenance budget of $8,000, $6,064 was spent, with $2,835 unused. Minor equipment budgeted $3,500. Spent was $2,204 with $1,295 unused. Smith River Fire, equipment maintenance budget $14,850, $11,912 spent with $2,937 unused. Minor equipment budgeted $15,650, spent was $11,912 with $10,001 unused. Crescent City Fire.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Oh, is it already done?
Yeah, but if you'd like to leave those numbers with Kylie or email them to us, that
I
would
can
be
email them to you.
great. Thank you. We
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Good morning.
I'm going to hand
Hand them to Kylie. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors. I'm Jeff Hunterlock with the Operating Engineers Local 3, represented up here in Humboldt-Del Norte County, also up here. But I wanted to talk to you about an email I sent out last maybe 2 weeks ago. Never got a response from any of y'all. This is an updated flyer, so I don't know maybe if I got caught up in spam or what it was, but we're putting on a Public Works compliance workshop. And I know some of the folks from up here did get it, but I didn't get any responses from any of the supervisors. It's going to be hosted by the Building and Construction Trades for Humboldt-Del Norte County. And we're going to have some special guest speakers there. Michelle Tucker from CFAC, Construction Industry Force Account Council, and Jesse Jimenez from the FFC Foundation for Fair Contracting. We have a special guest speaker coming from the State of California, DIR, Division of Apprenticeship Standards, Don Merrill. And there's a lot of new laws in place, and I think that an event like this would be highly recommended. I mean, just for you guys approve or disapprove projects. You guys are in charge of a lot, so if you can't come, maybe send one of your representatives to come to the event. We're going to host a lunch. Would like to see the Public Works Director or some of his staff to come, because like I say, these councils, there's some new laws regarding the apprenticeship standards. So we're going to really start pushing hard here. The governor is looking for 500,000 apprentices, the new governor. And it'll be happening here in Del Norte County, and I'd like to help with that, and I'm sure you folks would like to help with that too. And come enjoy the lunch. Lori, really like to see you there, and Mr. Gitlin, I'd like to see you there too. All of you there. You have a great day, and thank you for the time to speak.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to see you again. Okay, do we have any other public comments? General public comments.
Hi, Eileen Cooper. With regard to transportation issues, the Friends of Del Norte did send on a letter of support for Last Chance Grade. And our letter emphasized not just the economic issues, but the importance of doing a careful, thoughtful job, because we live in a place that has world-class resources, renowned for our old-growth redwoods. And so it is essential that we definitely spend the money to find the alternative that has the least impacts. And we appreciate the effort made to make sure that happens. As you mentioned with Highway 199, it is still very troublesome to us with regard to transportation. Uh-oh. Everybody's having a hard time up here. She's not sick. Those chihuahuas have throat problems. At the last transportation meeting, it was noteworthy to hear the new representative from Caltrans saying that they were willing to look at safety improvements only, that the safety record on 199 is so bad that widening, not just guardrails, surfacing, all these issues are worthy of improving the road for safety reasons only, which is what we've been saying all along, an alternative for safety only. When you have a road that's this dangerous, that has a canyon that can't be cut into far enough, and a river below, this is no kind of road to put more truck traffic. And that the models used to determine that this was going to be safe for STAA trucks are very insufficient. They are geometric calculations that allow 1 foot of clearance. I don't think you or anyone else wants your children driving on a road like that.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper.
So
Appreciate it.
I'm encouraged that the new Caltrans person is
Thank you.
offering up safety
We appreciate
solutions.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other general public comments today? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to item 12. That would be DHHS and child support update. Heather and Aaron. Good morning.
Morning. How's everybody?
Great.
I will be doing a joint update with our Director of Child Support, Erin Goodwin, but I'll kick it off. First, I want to just give a quick reminder of the timeline of events regarding the 1279 2nd Street lease, so it's fresh in everyone's minds. 1279 2nd Street has been used by Alcohol and Other Drugs branch of DHHS since 2013, and the current lease goes through June of 2026. At the December 10th meeting of just this past year, the board approved a resolution acknowledging the integration of AOD and mental health into one comprehensive behavioral health division, which has now taken place. This plan included movement from AOD staff to existing office space at another location, creating the potential for over $400,000 in savings if the board approved an early termination agreement. At that time, the board did not vote on the agreement and asked that further conversation take place with the landlord and county council regarding the terms. At that time, I had also shared with you that I checked with other department heads to see if anyone else needed the space or could take over the lease. And at that time, no one was interested, and the only viable option would have been child support. But as it turned out, based on the square footage, it wouldn't have met their needs, and they were in contract negotiations for another space at that time. Since the December 10th meeting, I've continued discussions with the landlord and explored other options, Coincidentally, there have been some updates in child support, which Director Goodwin will provide you further details to. And together we've had discussions with the landlord about expanding the available space to meet the needs of child support. So the details of ending DHHS's lease and establishing a child support lease would have to be worked through with council's assistance. So I can't answer any specific questions about that would look like today, but I wanted to give this update and let you know that we're having those preliminary discussions. They've been very productive, and I'm hopeful that this will result in child support being able to use the space. Lastly, before I turn it over to Director Goodwin, I will say that the landlord has been very gracious and accommodating and patient with us as we've worked through these different plans. I'm optimistic that in the near future we will be able to bring something to the board that you guys will see as beneficial to all the parties. So, and I'll be here for any questions.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning.
Good morning, board. I'd like to take the opportunity. It's very exciting what's going on with the AOD building for our department right now. We, for the past year, have been looking for a new facility to meet the current work practices that the state is pressuring us and guiding us through. Our current facility doesn't meet that requirement, so we have been looking. I presented to the future facilities the results of our request for proposals. So at this point, we were in a negotiation when the AOD building became available or was asked for availability. Unfortunately, we were going through a lease negotiation at that time, which ultimately fell through due to a termination clause. So something very similar to what's going on here. After that notification, I contacted Heather and subsequently have been talking to Matt to work on a plan to assume the facility. Big difference is our employee size is a little bit different. So not only would it be tentatively occupying the AOD side, but it would be expanding into the facility a little bit more than what AOD had. So right now we are looking at plans. Matt and myself, we are working with a drafter to look at what we want for a floor plan so we can produce a tentative lease agreement to move this forward. But we are putting forth a really good faith effort to see if we can make this facility work. We have, I believe at this time, this is our 6th option we've investigated over the past year. So we really would like to see this to work out. So it's a good opportunity for our department.
Great.
Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
So Aaron, this is great news.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, Supervisor.
And I'm understanding that, and Heather, just jump in at any time if I'm incorrect, the lease is continuing to be paid on the vacant building of about $3,000, a little over $3,000 a month. Is that still correct?
As we have a current lease in place until 2026 and the board has not approved any changes, yes, we continue to pay our rent.
Thank you. So my next question, in anticipation of what I hope will be a happy ending to this story, is what's the timetable? Should you like this building enough to put your John Hancock on that lease, when do you think this might happen?
So the status we're at now is the tentative plans that was put forth to the future facility. Maybe it was an 80% solution. It was really close to what we want to see, but we do have to make some changes to it. So I'm working with the drafting agents in our office with Matt currently to kind of get that blueprint down so that they can best estimate the building cost because there will be a build-to-suit component to this. Once we have that information, they can put the numbers to it. We would get a tentative lease agreement. And the second that that's in my hands, it would go directly to county council so that we can get this process started. But I'm very motivated to get this done. With my upcoming deployment, my goal is to get us in this facility before I depart.
So this is sometime perhaps over the summer months?
Well, so talking to Matt in our first conversation, if the timelines were pretty faithful with what we want as far as the timeline goes, we're looking at potentially August.
And the build out, whose cost is that?
So that would be our cost. How we have it tentatively planned, it'll be worked out with the lease, would be we would have a base rate, which is a square footage rate based on market, what we're going to negotiate, and everything for the build-to-suit, which we were expecting to do and we're negotiating with all the other agents that we'd pay for, is that we'd have it in a separate account. So we can, since we're not general funded, we can pay it off earlier versus doing it within the term lease.
But there will be a cost.
Yes,
within
sir.
another department. Anybody else? Okay, great news.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment or questions from the audience for Heather and Aaron? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 13. Approve and authorize the chair to sign and send a comment letter to the California Fish and Game Commission recommending amendments to the 2019 sport fishing regulations for the Upper Klamath and Trinity River Spring Chinook salmon as requested by the Natural Resources Goal Committee.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and take this one. Supervisor Hemmingson can jump in when he feels fit, and then also Director Kunstl and staff who have participated in this. As you may or may not be aware, petitioners specific to the Karuk tribe petitioned for the listing of the spring run Chinook salmon on the Klamath River last year. At the Commission's February meeting in Sacramento, the candidacy listing for the spring run Chinook was accepted. Under that candidacy listing, it essentially shuts down spring Chinook fishing on the Klamath River during that run, which would start February 1st and under current regulations would have gone through end of August. That is a substantial financial hit to not only recreational anglers, but in addition, businesses that are around the Klamath River. Unfortunately, with any kind of listing under the Endangered Species Act of the state of California, the Commission cannot consider financial or economic impacts under a listing. However, the Commission is allowed some latitude under California Code of Regulations 8084, which essentially says the Commission may consider opportunity to allow angling on species that are in a candidacy period or status. So the Commission did something that was fairly unprecedented in February, which was allowed stakeholders to meet and return to the Commission with hopefully a proposed regulation around sports fishing of the spring Chinook salmon on the Klamath River. This was not only supported by the petitioners, the Karuk tribe, but was also supported by many stakeholders in the room that day. Wayne Simon and Chief of Fisheries assembled stakeholders here in Del Norte County, stakeholders in Redding, and stakeholders in Sacramento to come up with potentially a set of regulations that we could bring to the Commission meeting, which will be held in Santa Monica in April, I believe on the 17th or 18th. At that meeting, the Commission will consider some of the proposed alternatives to completely shutting down that spring run Chinook fishery. My hope is that that can be accepted under the rules of a candidate listing, and that the shall comments under 8085 will and won't prevent that language from not being considered. So before you today, you have a letter that was crafted by both staff and Supervisor Hemmingson and myself to request approval from the board on these two alternative measures to allow the spring run Chinook salmon fishery to remain open, and provides a massive amount of concessions by the anglers and the businesses around the Klamath River to protect that resource, the spring run Chinook, and continue their spawning habitats in the upriver areas.
Thank you. Any public comment on item number 13?
Hi, Eileen Cooper. I speak for myself, but in general, the Friends of Del Norte. She doesn't like being up here. Advocates for the protection of endangered species, of course. And I the workshop, unfortunately, didn't make it to my calendar, perhaps because my computer was broken during the past month. But I question the July opening for fishery. The idea is to allow the Lewiston fish to travel all the way upstream, and so that hatchery Chinook can make it, and the endangered fish can make it. You're hoping that most of the fish will be out of the river by July, but I don't see an assessment or any background information to support the idea that you're not going to be eating endangered fish with this proposal. And that to me is worrisome. I would feel more comfortable about fishing if all of the hatchery fish were tagged. But unfortunately, that is not true right now, because this is an emergency situation. And so it's not like this year is going to be forever. These are emergency measures. And endangered fish require sacrifice. I would think that the proposal would be better accepted if it was simply 100% catch and release up until that period of time. And I wish you might consider that. I would think that the only way to keep some of the overlap time open on the lower river would be 100% tagging. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me try this one more time without coughing. So, when does the fish become extinct? It's endangered right now, and we're playing with Mother Nature right now. And I get it, you're just writing a letter for support. And I understand that these fishermen, this is their whole livelihood and their job. But the thing is that if we keep pushing the bucket, we're not going to have any fish to fish anymore. They will go extinct. Is there going to be an El Nino coming up in 2020? Does anyone know? That affects what the fish is able to eat. So you folks, and one more thing, I don't know how the York tribe is connected with all this, but in 1970 they had their rights affirmed in the Supreme Court over that river and what goes on with it. So you might want to think twice about supporting something that's going to destroy the fish and make them extinct. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on item number 13?
Move for approval.
Second. Chair Cowan, if I could add some points that were brought up just to ensure some clarity on this, that the Yurok tribe and some representatives were at that stakeholder meeting. In addition, I would like to address some of the points about science specifically that Ms. Cooper had brought up. The California Department of Fish and Game presented the science that the stakeholder group discussed before weighing in on these alternatives, specific to the run timing and the nature of that run, and more importantly, the hatchery component that is present there, which the project petitioners, the Karuk tribe, did not want to shut down the recreational fishery because specifically those hatchery fish are put there to recreational fish. It is believed by the department, more importantly with the proposed run timing that we're considering here, those fish have, as you've indicated, have moved through the system and allowed to reach their natal spawning grounds and also the hatcheries that help reproduce those fish. So it was with this very much focused effort that we were trying to allow for the fishing of potentially what would be a threatened or endangered species under California Endangered Species Act to continue that recreational fishing as what was supported by the petitioners, in this case the Creek Tribe, and then also representatives at that stakeholder meeting, which were the Yurok Tribe at the time, along with other stakeholders.
Thank you for that clarification and answering those questions. So I have a motion and a second on.
I have a question with regard to the delay in opening the season on July 1st. What's the current arrangement? It said you're cutting the season down by 50%.
Correct. So the season's already underway actually for spring Chinook. We can start fishing those in February, and that season currently goes through August 15th before the fall run Chinook transitions in. That's basically an arbitrary line that the department feels through their creel census data. The fall run starts and the spring run Chinook ends. And so the agreement at this stakeholders meeting, which the board is essentially carrying the wishes of the stakeholders group to the department, this was the concession that was given specifically to curtail 50% of the season for that spring run Chinook.
So my question with regard to economic impact, just how many anglers do we have coming in during this season, and the impact, are you going to compact the season? Those people who fish love to fish and they come in here. What's the protocol? Will it hurt us economically? And how many people,
yeah,
how many anglers are not going to be coming into Del Norte County to fish?
Yeah, and
as a result of this?
There's the economic impacts that were estimated by a lot of the recreational anglers, including the businesses around this sport, was in the neighborhood of about $500,000 for that period of time. But unfortunately, as I tried to clarify with my earlier comments, the California Endangered Species Act doesn't allow the Commission to consider economic impacts in an endangered species listing. Even though we have brought these concerns to the attention of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and to the Commission, we're unfortunately in a rock and a hard place and working the best we can to find a middle ground to keep the fishery open.
Well, I don't have any issue at all with the limiting to one fish. I'm not quite sure, Ms. Cooper, that catch and release is as successful as you think it might be. Once you catch a fish and put it back in, I don't think the life of a fish is very long after that once it comes in human contact. I just have a little bit of an issue of the economic impact of delaying the season to July 1st. I'm wondering if there's any moderation in our recommendation in this letter to cut this from 50% perhaps to a little less impactful number so it doesn't hurt our angler. And those folks who come here and spend money in hotels and eat at restaurants, and they're not coming here now. So you're saying it's $500,000. I'd like to see that in the coffers of our folks who do business with this. This is going to impact that.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yeah, this wasn't a recommendation that was made by us to this committee that we were with. This was their recommendation to us to support. I can't go any farther than that. I mean, pretty simple.
Yeah, to clarify, what Supervisor Hemming's saying is that the angling community, which there was well over 20 people at the meeting from the angling community, they're the ones that made the proposal that is before us today. It's something that we did not arbitrarily come up with. So they understand there's going to be economic impact, but they would rather have some of the season instead of just none of the season. I hope that helps. But
and this also has to be something that the department can justify, that they can defend, and so I think the anglers realize that, the sports fishermen and guides understand that there has to be a defensible line that you can stand behind and say, hey, you know, they're not going to be there when we're fishing, so we're all good.
Is there anybody here from this Guides and Sportsmen's Association here in the audience who can address this? Okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number 14, adopt the resolution of intent to annex the Redwood Family Worship Center into Meadowbrook Acres area, subdivision W-4 of the Delaware County Flood Control District for the purpose of finishing domestic water as requested by the Community Development Department Assistant Engineer. That's not you, but good morning, Heidi.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. The county is responsible for oversight over a water system that's referred to as the Meadowbrook Acres area, subzone W1. This is the area on the north end of Parkway Drive. The Redwood Family Worship Center is located on English Lane and is just outside of the boundary of the Meadowbrook Acres district. And as such, they have now asked for water, and in order to be able to receive water from the district, they have to annex into the district. And the resolution that you have on today's agenda would be a resolution of intent to annex them into the Meadowbrook Acres area, and then we would return on April 23rd with an actual approval. In the meantime, we will be sending letters to every occupant or landowner within the district to make them aware of this. The city of Crescent City has indicated that there is no issue with regard to supply of water, so we completely support the annexation. It's not going to supplant the water available to others within the district. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Any public comment on item number 14? Okay. Board, any questions?
Yeah, Heidi, come on back a second. I wanted to just ask you a quick question. Yes. Is this strictly a water issue?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Water.
There's no other collateral issues to do with...
No, it's sort of strange because we call it a flood control district, but in the early 70s, there was a Davis-Grunsky loan that was applied for by the county, which pays for, which are loans for domestic water services. So that is the only service that is being provided.
And any costs? I'm looking at your recommendation. Is there any costs associated on this?
They paid a $2,700, I believe, connection fee to the city of Crescent City. Assuming they're annexed into the district, they will pay the same assessment as the other folks who live in the district who have lived there since the loan went into place, which is approximately, I believe, $4.50 a month, in addition to the water fees for whatever they consume.
I'll make that motion to adopt the resolution of intent.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
To annex the... May I make that motion? Chair?
Sure.
Okay. Adopt the resolution of intent to annex the Redwood Family Worship Center into the Meadowbrook Acres subdivision of the Delaware County Flood Control District for the purposes of furnishing domestic water.
Sound good? Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah, I was just going to say that they're paying for the connection cost and everything, the line hookup. That's what it said.
Yes, they are going to have to pay to extend the line from where the current line is to their property, and included in that will be where they have to have engineered drawings. We're going to be charging them to review those construction drawings and to inspect, because it's all within a county maintained road.
Which was all spelled out in all the documentation we got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about that interruption, but I was trying to get to you. People jumping ahead. Any other comments? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Kylie?
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Moving on to item 15, waive full reading, read by title only, an ordinance of the County of Del Norte replacing Chapter 2.33, Purchasing Agent relating to the sale of real property, personal property, purchasing procedures, and bidding procedures for public projects, and introduce an ordinance amending Del Norte County Code Title 2, Chapter 33, Section 85, informal bidding procedures to increase the amounts of project values for bidding projects under the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act in accordance with passage of Assembly Bill 2249 as requested by the County Administrative Officer.
So this ordinance was introduced at the last meeting, and since that time we've received no comments. Essentially what this does is the state law is allowed for additional limits in regards to negotiated contracts, informal bidding, and formal bidding. and our ordinance now will reflect what the state allows. So for projects up to $60,000, you get a local agency that is subject to the Uniform Public Cost, Construction Cost Accounting Act could just negotiate with a contractor up to $60,000. Between 60 and 200, it requires an informal bidding process. Anything above that is a formal bidding process.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment regarding item number 15 on the agenda? Seeing none. Any comments from the board? Kylie, could you please call the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Moving on to item 16, approve and direct staff to assist in hosting a delegation from the Governor's Office of Business Relations in June of 2019. Supervisor Howard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This would be requesting board approval to allow some staff time to commit to a project that would potentially be at the end of June at this point with the Governor's Office on Business and Economic Development. I've been in communication for the last couple months with Diana Dominguez and Kiana Pereira around opportunities for Delaware County and Humboldt County in regards to opportunity zones, business development, international trade, amongst other topics. And Humboldt County had made the invitation to the Governor's Office to support a workshop for not only government individuals, but also a workshop for business leaders within the community that were seeking opportunity not only to take advantage of areas that were designated opportunity zones within our two counties, but also grants and other incentive programs that are offered by GoBiz, which is the short name for the Economic and Business Development Department of the Governor's Office. Lynette Mullins and Scott Adair, Scott being with the director of the Humboldt County Economic Development Department, have been working with us closely to try to figure out a good time for the event to take place. But the more specific request would be to have them as representatives from the Governor's Office here before or after the workshop in Humboldt County. They're expressing a great deal of interest because they have not been to Delaware County, and my hope is that because my time is significantly limited as a board member, that we could allow some staff time to help participate in this project to bring the Governor's attention to the county.
Understood. Jay, can we do consensus or do you need a vote?
Consensus would work.
Do you have consensus from the board? Right. Thank you.
Public comment.
Any public comment on item 16? Okay, seeing none. Move on to item 17, approve and adopt an ordinance of the Delaware County Board of Supervisors amending the ordinance 2015-006 and establishing the 2019 master fee ordinance for the County of Del Norte in accordance with the Government Code section 54985, and to direct the clerk of the board to publish a summary of the ordinance within 15 days as requested by County Council.
I'm gonna let you.
Actually, that should be County Administrative Officer.
As requested by the CAO.
So this was introduced at the last meeting, and all of the information has been available since that time. I haven't had any conversations with individuals at this point, but the public hearing then is the time to discuss any of that and any concerns the board may have or the public might have, and take those concerns forward if needed.
Great. Any public comment at this time? Okay. A motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Seeing none. Kylie?
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Moving on to budget transfers, we have approve and adopt budget transfers 0309 and 03010. 0309, the amount of $60,417 within the Welfare Administration budget, and 03010 in the amount of $75,449 within the TUP regional project budget. Any public comment on items 18 and 19?
Move to approve both budget transfers.
Second.
Motion to approve. Any comments from the board? A motion and a second. Kylie?
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Moving on to legislative issues, approve the inclusion of a generator as a fixed assets purchase in the amount of $15,000 within the County Service Area Number 1 budget for fiscal year 2018-19 as requested by the Director of Community Development. Heidi?
Yes.
I just said it.
Yeah, you pretty much summarized it. And at the last board meeting, we had a budget transfer request to transfer the funds to cover it in this particular board report. Didn't make its way, so this is the final step, and we're hoping that you support this and we can get that generator ordered and be in good condition.
Move for approval.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any public comment regarding item 20? Seeing none. Heidi, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. Moving on to our last and final item, number 21, approve and authorize the chair to sign and send a comment letter to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife regarding the draft supplemental environmental document to amend the state elk hunting regulations for 2019 as requested by Supervisor Howard.
Again, Supervisor Hemmingson could speak to this as a member of the Natural Resources Goals Committee and then also staff of the Community Development Department. Before you today is a letter that would go to the California Fish and Game Commission regarding mammal regulations and the approval of a draft supplemental environmental impact statement for just the northwest hunt zone of California. The Commission in February took up the action to consider an increase for Roosevelt elk tags from 85 to 105 plus 3 additional tags for the cooperative hunt for the northwest hunt zone. In order to do that, the environmental impact statement would need revision. That will be before the Commission. We had hoped in April. It appears because of some concerns and issues that were brought up by constituents and members of the public, including myself, the issue will now be moved to May to be addressed so they could clarify some issues with the draft EIS that the Commission will consider. As you're aware, this has been a long-standing issue for not only the Delaware County Board of Supervisors, but also a lot of our farmers that are here represented in our audience today. The letter is in front of you. I won't take up any more time unless board members have questions and allow public comment if necessary.
Any public comment on item number 21? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions from our board? Kylie?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Cowan?
Yes. That concludes our meeting. Our next meeting will be held on April 9th, 2019.